So today we're going to talk about completing the square. So if we know how to solve quadratics by factoring, by taking square root of both sides, whatnot. But sometimes if we're factoring, we came to problems that were prime. Well, for those problems that were prime, now we're going to learn how we can solve those. So if we look at these couple examples here, all we're going to do here is complete the square. So if we look at our first example, we have x squared plus 6x plus c. X squareds are a, 6x are b, and c is going to be our c. Well, we need to find what c is in order to make this factorable, and then we can solve it by factoring. So if we look, we have a little formula here that we can use. So c equals half of b, or b over 2, and then we need to square it. Well, b in this case is 6. If we take half of 6, we get 3. 3 squared is 9. So c here actually equals 9. Now, if we take x squared plus 6x plus 9, and we factor it, that's going to factor to x plus 3 times x plus 3, because we need two factors of 9 that add up to 6. What's 3 and 3? So another way to write x plus 3 times x plus 3 is x plus 3 squared. Okay? This can be also written as x plus half of b squared. So we will always see this number here will always be half of b. So in this case here, b was 6, half of 6 is 3, so we write our 3 there. So let's look at this one over here. We need to find what c is. So we have an a, b, and c. So we take half of b, which is negative 13, or sorry, negative 26 divided by 2. So half of b and square it. So half of b is negative 13, and if we square negative 13, we get 169. So c is actually 169. Now, we can always, so now we need to factor x squared minus 26x plus 169. Well, to do that, we need to fill this spot in with half of b. Well, half of b is half of negative 26, well, and half of negative 26 is 13. So we have x minus 13. For this one here, we need half of b. Well, half of b is negative 9. So we have negative 9 squared, which is 81. So c here is 81. So x squared minus 18x plus 81, we need to factor that. That factors. So make that a perfect square, and we get x plus half of b. Well, half of b is negative 9. So we have x minus 9 squared. And the next one you guys can do on your own, or you can look at my notes filled out online on my website. So, when we complete the squared, our standard formula for a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. In order to complete the square, our leading coefficient has to be 1. So a needs to always equal 1 in order to complete the square. So we get a, once we get a equal to 1, then we need to move c to the other side. Get all of our constants on one side, get all of our x's on the other side. So if you look here, if we were looking at our general formula here, we would have x squared plus x on one side, and then we have to subtract c from each side, so we get x by itself, so we would have all that equals negative c. Then we need to set up an equation that looks something like this. So we have x squared plus bx plus something, which is what we need to find, which is what we did in our last slide, equals c plus something, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So to find that something, you take b, divide it by 2, and then square it. That's what this is here, half of b and squared. Add the squared term to both sides of the equal sign. Then we need to change the left side of the equal sign to a perfect square. So I have x plus half of b squared equals c plus half of b squared. and then take square root of both sides and solve for x. So let's look at this first example. So our first step is to get all of the x's on a side by itself. So to do that, we gotta subtract 18 from each side. Now, set up our equation. So we're getting plus something equals negative 18 plus something. Excuse me, I've been kind of sick lately, so. Now, I'm also going to set up our next step. Because if you remember, what goes here is half of b. And what goes here is half of b squared. So, half of b, well, this is a, and this is b. Half of b is 6. So we can automatically put a 6 right here. 6 squared is 36. So we fill these two slots in with 36. So, I've kind of just done steps 4 to 6 right here. So I set up my equation, and then to find these two spots here, I took half of b, which also goes here, and then I took that and squared it to get these 3 spots here. So now I have x plus 6 squared equals negative 18 plus 36, which is just 18. Now we need to solve for x. So square root both sides. So we get x plus 6 equals plus or minus the square root of 18. Well, 18, square root of 18 breaks down to the square root of 9 times square root of 2, which becomes 3 root 2. So we have x plus 6 equals plus or minus 3 root 2. And then get x all by itself, so you guys subtract 6 from each side. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus 3 root 2. And that's everything for one example. For the next one, once again, we need a leading coefficient of 1. Well, that's done for us already. Then we need to get all the x's on side by itself. So subtract 25 from each side. So we get x squared minus 2x equals negative 25. And now set up our equation. So we have x squared minus 2x plus something equals negative 25 plus something. I'm also going to set my next step. So to find what goes in these 3 spots here, we have to take half of b. Well, this is a, this is b. Half of b. Well, b is negative 2. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. So we can put negative 1 here because half of b always goes in this spot. Negative 1 squared is just 1. So we fill all these in with just a 1. So if we take x squared minus 2x plus 1, it's going to factor to x minus 1 times x minus 1, or just x minus 1 squared. And if you would take this and FOIL distribute it out, you would end up back to this right here. Now, we need to collect like terms on the right side. And now solve. So take the square root of each side. So we get x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 24. Well, 24 breaks down, we need to break down negative 24. So that's going to break down to 2I root 6. So 24 breaks down to the square root of 4 times the square root of 6, and the square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 6 is going to break down, and you got to bring the I out because there's a negative. So 2I root 6. Get x by itself, so you add 1 each side, and we get x equals 1 plus or minus 2I root 6. And that's our final answer. Next one. Now for these here, we have a leading coefficient out in front of 2. So we need to divide everything by 2. When we do that, we're left with x squared plus 8x plus 6 equals 0. So get all the x's on one side, get everything else on the other side. I'm going to do 2 steps in one, so we're going to have plus something equals negative 6 plus something. Okay, because we had to subtract 6 from each side, so that's how we have negative 6 over here. Add something to each side. And the next step, so to find these spots here again, once again we have to take half of b and square it. So half of 8 is 4, so we can put the 4 here, and 4 squared is 16. So we have x plus 4 squared equals 10. And solve. Square root each side. So we have x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 10. Remember, we're solving quadratics. We need 2 answers, so when we take the square root of each side, we got to add in the plus or minus. And then subtract 4 from each side. And the square root of 10 does not break down. So we have x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 10. For this example here, once again, you divide by 4. So we get x squared minus 10x minus 3 equals 0. So if x squared minus 10x plus something equals 3 plus something. And then we can set up our next step too. So half of negative 10 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. So we have x minus 5 squared equals 3 plus 25, which is 28. Square root both sides. So we have x minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 28. 28 breaks down to the square root of 4 times the square root of 7. So we get plus or minus 2 root 7. And then add 5 to each side, so x equals 5 plus or minus 2 root 7. And last example here. Our leading coefficient is 3, so that means we have to divide everything by 3. So we have x squared minus 12x plus 50 equals 0. And then get the x's on side by itself and add in a blank. So gotta add in that something. And then we can also take the next step. So half of negative 12 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is 36. So we have x minus 6 squared equals negative 14. And take square root of each side. So we get x minus 6 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 14. Remember, we can have negatives under square root. So we gotta bring that out. So we have I root 14 now.